Greetings, Justice Seekers. Welcome to Season 1 of Justice, Not Justice, Episode 18. So now we are communicating and writing with the judge as an effort to fill him in on what has happened and so that he can make smart and informed orders moving forward, okay? Because clearly he was not informed properly in his very first hearing and introduction. All right. So we talked about, okay, this leads me to so talking about Bangert, how Bangert lied to the judge. This leads me to the hostility Jamie and I feel for each other in which the children witnessed. That was in the findings and order that the judge composed. Let me be extremely clear. Any hostility that I might feel for Jamie is the direct result of Jamie's lies, manipulations, and efforts to hurt not only me, but my children and my friends and family. Prior to filing for divorce, I made her a generous offer to help her transition into her new life. Jamie ignored it and has continued to do nothing but shun my continued and repeated offers and gestures to help her. She's continued to lie, including under oath and to her children. She tries to hurt those close to me and manipulate circumstances in favor of the story she has spun as a poor woman whose husband left her destitute and alone with 4 children for another woman. Let me be more specific. As I mentioned earlier, Jamie and I had begun discussing divorce back in the summer of 17. Kristen, who actually happened to be living in Montana at the time, had no intention of initiating a long distance or long-term relationship with me. Someone I met online, completely benign context. We hit it off, became fast friends, and she was a great support to me as I began delving into the reality that I was going to be divorcing Jamie. And she did all of this all the way from Montana for months. In early December of 17, Jamie and I went to dinner. Okay, so this is when I'm not going to reiterate this. This is when she freaked out and threw the bottle, and you heard the recording of it, threatened to kill me and the children. Okay, and then I reported about how the next day they went to Walmart and she performed oral sex on him and sent the videos to me. Over the course of the next several weeks, given the upcoming holidays, I did my best to try to continue life as normal for the children. We had a Christmas party, including lots of friends and family. All the while, Jamie is imploring me not to leave her. As we moved into January of 18, I tried with great effort to help her come to terms that this was going to be happening. She continued to refuse to accept it. As a matter of fact, she began stalking and harassing me, never leaving me alone, following me into a room after I would ask her to please leave me alone, fighting with me and calling me names in front of the children, etc. We had a number of fights, all of which are recorded. All the while, she was threatening both me and Kristen that she was going to fabricate charges of abuse toward both of us. And again, remember at this point, Kristen is still in Montana, and take everything viral. As the end of the month came around, Jamie started making threats that she was going to take control of this shit show. Okay, we've already talked about having the fight the next day, and he left and stayed in a hotel. He went down and filed a restraining order. It was denied. She went down and made her own that was based all on lies, and he got kicked out of his house with nothing. In early April of 18, Jamie yet again filed almost exactly the same false domestic violence report against me. During our hearing, I played for the court commissioner the recordings and showed the evidence that proved that Jamie made everything up. Jamie perjured herself continuously during this hearing, despite the court commissioner clearly suggesting that what she was saying could not possibly be true. In other words, she was saying, don't be lying, but she just still did. It was dismissed, yet another reason why I was unable to see for months to see my children. Your Honor, I hope by this point that you are beginning to get a picture of who and what you are dealing with. Jamie is a terrified, angry woman who is willing to lie, deceive, and manipulate all those around her, including her children, for her purpose, and including in front of court commissioners and you. And her attorney is supporting her deception, as she did in chambers with you. I have provided all of this to Attorney Bangert. She seems to have ignored and or disregarded all of it, which makes all of her recommendations suspect. Accordingly, I am also filing a motion to remove Attorney Bangert from the case, paperwork enclosed. First effort to get rid of Bangert. You cannot have a GAL advocating for your children when she clearly is lying and hates one party and is in favor. I mean, how can this be allowed to happen? First effort to get her removed. Not only are her recommendations queer, but more importantly, they are harming my children. I have asked her many times to mitigate the influence that their mother is having on them through her aggression, lies, and efforts to hurt me and Kristen. She has consistently ignored them and made recommendations to the exact opposite with no supporting evidence. Nobody has ever asked Bangert to prove or support what she says. And this is a significant problem in this Milwaukee County court system, is that the GALs are given a huge amount of latitude and trust and are held accountable to nobody. And Lisa Bangert in particular takes specific advantage of that position and knows that she's doing it and does it intentionally. I vehemently question her integrity and her qualifications as a GAL. She seems only interested in promoting me as the angry father, and to what end I can't even fathom, as I hope you can now see in retrospect to what you were told in chambers. Never once during this entire process have I perjured myself. Jamie, on the contrary, has done so consistently. As well, she is in contempt of every single order that either you or any court commissioner has imposed upon her. As just a couple of examples, she is supposed to be making to support the children. As a matter of fact, she makes diligent efforts to sabotage and discourage my relationship with them by continuing to lie to them and demand they make a choice between me and her. And if they choose me at any given time, she makes them pay dearly by yelling at them and punishing them. And that's true. She does do that. And she continues to do that years later. She's supposed to be paying my mortgage, and she consistently does not. Be aware she is not on the mortgage, blah, blah, blah. There's no equity. I have been trying every avenue I can think of to procure, okay, avenue, blah, blah, blah. She's not making, I'm just trying to not be too boring. She's not making the mortgage payment. So now the house is starting to, go into debt. And lastly, in case it is not clear by this point, I have never put my hands on Jamie or any of our children. In conclusion, I implore you, given the information that was never conveyed to you by any of the attorneys, to do right not only by me, but more importantly by my children. Jamie has been allowed for nearly a year now to behave as she wishes with no consequence. I'm exhausted by it. I and those around me have suffered much. It never had to go like this. It was Jamie's choice to take this divorce down the path that she has. As a matter of fact, sometime in December of January, before he actually filed for divorce, she sent me a text saying, contact your lawyer and then let me know how far and how nasty you want this to get. My desire is to quickly conclude this divorce so that I can move on with my life. It has taken far too long, solely at the hands of Jamie's hatred, wrath, and trickery. Respectfully, Jeremiah Collins. Okay, so this was emailed to the judge. There was scheduled to be a conference following the one in September where everybody still had an attorney. There was supposed to be a status conference held via telephone on October 16. Okay, so this is October. Meantime, he gets rid of his attorney, communicates with the judge in preparation for this status conference on the telephone, so that hopefully this will maybe go a little bit more fairly and accurately. So what happens and Attorney Christopoulos is supposed to initiate the call. So in other words, she's going to call the judge, get them on conference, call Bangert, get them on conference, and at the time, Jeremiah's attorney can get them all on conference, and they'd have this conversation. What ended up happening that day was, first of all, I'm going to go back to the fact that Jeremiah had signed a power of attorney allowing me to speak for him. And they really lost it about that. And the judge said, not a chance in hell. And they not a chance. And as a matter of fact, they started threatening, Bangert and Christopoulos started threatening that they were going to file a lawsuit against me for pretending to act like a lawyer and whatever. And so I was never allowed to, and it went far and deep, to not only be able to talk to clerks and secretaries and like in that entire family system related to this case was aware that they were not allowed to talk to me, because they know that Jeremiah stumbles and gets nervous and is not as well spoken and flails. And it's astonishing to me that every single time he and I would go down to try and file some paperwork, and they would explicitly, it's in the notes, like in the entire system, we are not allowed to talk to you, Kristen. Okay. So that was not going to be allowed to happen during this hearing on this telephone conference. So what ended up happening was the Christopoulos, Bangert, and the judge, the three of them, met alone without Jeremiah for 20 to 30 minutes. They explicitly excluded him from this status conference. I believe he basically got in at the very end and they said, okay, blah, blah, and we're done. Okay, so here is the order coming out of that conversation. Okay. And it's interesting because this is, okay. So none of what was in that original judge order that was supposed to be talked about is in here, okay? And so this is effectively how the judge responded to that very heartfelt letter imploring him to please consider the entire picture and do the right thing by my children. This is how the judge responded in an order. This case comes before the court on a request for additional information, which Mr. Collins sent to the court in an electronic mail message addressed to the judge personally. Mr. Collins asks two questions following the status conference the court conducted yesterday. Okay, just some technical stuff. Mr. Collins, who has decided to go without a lawyer in these proceedings, needs to understand the rules that govern all parties in court, and in particular, our rule against ex parte communications. Ex parte, to my understanding, meaning not everybody has to be present, okay? It's a pretty common sense rule, and most who appear in front of the court, even without lawyers, follow the rule without having to be reminded about it. It's not fair to the parties on the other side of the case for a party to talk to the judge alone, or to make accusations against the other party without giving the other party a chance to respond. This is a punitive comment. This is not empathetic, compassionate toward Jeremiah's plight at all, in case you're not picking up on this. And again, why? Is it because he's black? Is it because he's a man? The judge knows the whole picture now, and he's continuing to move forward along the lies, the narrative, the crazy. I also will say that it is in the Wisconsin statutes explicitly that judges, it's not the stat. I had to file an appeal, so I know that this is in there, that judges are supposed to support pro se people in not to the detriment of the other party who may be represented, but they have to kind of go above and beyond to help people who are representing themselves to represent themselves fairly. And he clearly is not doing that. Wisconsin recognizes, and I'm sure other states do as well, that attorneys can be expensive, and he's already put out, as he said in the letter, a lot of money. He can't afford another attorney. You can't punish people for that. You can't penalize them for that. And he is. Okay. The implications of Mr. Collins' message are serious. And Mr. Collins deserves an opportunity to be heard before the court responds. I'm just going to read this flipping it around. The implications of Ms. Collins' messages are serious, and Mr. Collins deserves an opportunity to be heard before the court responds. I hope I don't have to point out that, the bias in that. Therefore, I will hold Mr. Collins' request in abeyance until he proves that he served them with the request. Mr. Collins also must, and they already have all of this information anyway. I mean, Mr. Collins also must understand that written communications with the court are to be filed with the clerk. The judge does not communicate with the parties by electronic mail unless the judge initiates the communication. See Local Rule 1.15. Okay, fine. Accordingly, it is hereby ordered that the court will hold in abeyance a response until he can prove that he served this correspondence to all parties, which we did, and we proved. We showed that we uploaded the proof of service and all of that. And Mr. Collins shall not send correspondence about the case to the court by electronic mail. That's it. Nothing else. I'll see you soon.